really appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedule to join us for the National Cherry 2024 season launch, which is crazy to me that we are already up to the next cherry season. It feels like these come around and around very quickly. I'll just ask that everyone please keep themselves on mute while we're doing the presentations. And if you have any questions throughout the night, please pop them in the chat for us, and either myself or Geeta will be able to answer those for you and keep an eye on them. So my name's Jess Fearnley. I'm the Extension Manager with the Australian cherry industry. I work with a team that delivers the extension and communication program funded by Hort Innovations Cherry Levies. So I would like to take a moment quickly just to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're all meeting tonight. For me, that is the Wiradjuri people. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So tonight, as always, we have a very jam-packed schedule. I am hoping to have everyone off by 8:30 so we can all get back to mulling over what's going to happen on this cherry season. So tonight we'll have a bit of a quick whip around what's happening in the regions, and then we'll get an update from our president from Cherry Growers Australia, Alison, on the restructure and how we're sitting with pledges for the industry. I will then be passing to Adam Upton from Upton Agronomy, who will be giving a very quick update on what pests and diseases we might be expecting in the next little bit. Particularly, there's a start of blossoms, and as we move to fruit set and weather conditions, so what we'll be able to focus on in the coming weeks. I'll then be passing to Chris Lethbridge, our new export manager with the Trade Development Project. So Chris is going to give a bit of an introduction on who he is and what the plans are for the trade project in the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to be rounding up with some climate forecasting technologies from Sara Clarry with FarmLink. So what we'll do is we'll do a questionnaire right at the end. So if you've got any questions, like I said, pop them in the chat, keep a note so we can have lots of questions for our panel members this afternoon, tonight after all the presentations. So what's happening in the regions now? As part of the project, we have several regional development partners that give me intel into what's happening around Australia. And it's really positive to see that we've had some great pollination conditions across Australia. A lot of our early season regions, such as New South Wales and Victoria, are seeing really nice, beautiful, clear days like the one in this photo here. We've got good bees about in the orchard and really great conditions. A lot of our really early season varieties seem to be earlier again than what we've been expecting last season, which means that could set us up for a really good export year this year, which will be fantastic. There are around some of the areas we have seen a little bit of cooler temperatures overnight. I haven't heard of any sustained damage yet from anyone across Australia, so that's really positive. But I thought just to touch on while we are in flowering is looking out for frost damage and making sure that if we are seeing those cool temperatures, ensuring that if we've got frost fans, we're putting them out, or just being a little bit mindful of what damage could look like and how that might impact fruit set. So what I'll do is I'll actually put a little bit of a link to some articles on frost damage and how to identify it in the chat. They're from Michigan State University, just on identifying those, which might be useful if we keep seeing those conditions. So from the project, our national industry website is going to be launched in the next 2 months. So that's really exciting. The team, Geeta and CGA, have done a really big push on getting those organised, as well as the project team. So really excited to get this one out to all the cherry growers, and that'll be a one-stop shop for all your R&D, all your events. We've got lots of information that we've been pulling together for that, and it looks $100. So I can't wait to be able to share that with everyone. You might have noticed in the newsletter, we'll be popping out some season launch barbecues. So for those growers in New South Wales, we'll be running some catch-ups in late October. I'm hoping to potentially get some of these up and running in the other states as well. And these will just be an opportunity to catch up with everyone. We'll probably get some local agronomists to talk about what we can expect in the next couple of weeks, and just celebrate that we've got this far to the season, and then it's the final push to the end. So keep an eye out for those registration links in our newsletter going out tomorrow. I have been in the process of organising some vigor, pruning and canopy management workshops with Ronald Vermeulen from the Netherlands. So if those of you who came along to the conference, you might remember Ronald's presentation at our last session on the Thursday. So we're getting Ronald to come across to Australia when he's doing his consultancy rounds, and hoping to have at least workshops across all the regions. I'm hoping to at least get to New South Wales, Vic, SA and Tassie. So these workshops will be very similar to what we did with Greg Lang. For those of you who attended, we'll be doing some presentations, then out in the field, looking at some pruning, looking at that vigor management. So they're going to be in March, and more information will come about those very soon. And yeah, get in, register. Ronald's a great guy, and it's great to have someone from the Netherlands come across and give us some pointers, particularly on that March pruning time. Even the Tassie guys will be all finished by then too, which would be great. And the last thing is that I'm just flagging for those of you under the age of, I think we're going to make it 40. We have got some exciting news around a emerging leaders group coming very shortly to the cherry industry. So keep your ears out, keep your eyes out for those opportunities. They'll be highlighted in our newsletter, some mail outs and our social pages. So make sure you're following on all of those to not miss out on that opportunity to meet like-minded growers, and a great time to be able to increase your skills in that next gen group. So that's all from me. If you've got any questions about the project or anything that I've just spoken about, please pop them in the chat. You can always reach out to me as well. But I will now pass on to our president, Alison. I'm hoping, Gita, is Alison on? I can only see myself at the moment.
Yes, she's here.
Perfect. All right, Alison, thank you so much for jumping on. I know you've got a dinner that you're currently running out of, so I'll pass to you and then you can quickly duck back off.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, really appreciate you putting these on. It's really informative and all about communication, which we're really working hard to improve upon. I just wanted to outline that we're still working on the restructure of the CGA. We've had some fantastic responses with the pledges and really appreciate everybody's thought in committing to the new structure and what we can look at providing for our industry moving forward. We are a growing industry who produce a lot of tons of fruit to high value, and we need to have that properly resourced to represent our growers properly and grow our industry as it deserves. So there has been a number of bits of paperwork that have come out over the time since we had our launch of this restructure at the Cherry Conference in Tassie. So I'm hoping that anyone that has any questions might like to perhaps give me a call if they've got anything that they want answered. But we're getting close to the figure that we require to activate. And we had a CGA meeting just the other day. So looking positive to look at employing hopefully a full-time CEO and a board, but at this point we still need some more pledges. So I ask if anyone is considering, if anyone's got any questions, to please touch base with myself or any of the board, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. But you know, some more pledges would be great. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Alison. And Gita, I'm not sure if in the background we could put a link to those pledging documents. I'm not sure if that's possible, but like Alison said, for us to continue as an industry, we really need to get some support in terms of a CEO and have someone advocating for our industry full time. We're becoming bigger and bigger, and it's just imperative for us to remain successful. So if anyone has any questions, please reach out to Alison. Yeah, more than happy to chat. I know she is. So thank you. You go and enjoy the rest of your dinner. Appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you, and keep up the great work, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alison. Okay, I'd now like to introduce Adam Upton from Upton Agronomy. Adam's been kind enough to jump on this evening to just quickly chat about some of the pests and diseases he's seen over the last few weeks as flowering started, and what we might be able to expect and what we should be on the lookout for in the coming weeks across the regions. You're just on mute too, Adam, sorry.
A bit better.
Yeah,
Right,
sounds good.
I think everyone sort of noticed the weather that we have been having, the large amount of windy days and things like that. So during blossom time, the obvious one is thrips getting into those flowers, and also all the way up until petal fall for some of those early varieties. So making sure they're controlled, whether it's 1, 2, maybe 3 sprays, depending how long your flowering is stretching out for. Apart from that, the amount of chill portions coming into the season and that sort of stuff was a little bit variable this year, depending on where you were in terms of your latitude. So those down more Tassie way were a little bit about a week behind type thing in some of their chill portions, where you get all the way up to young and orange where they were about a week late. So depending where you were in latitude, depending where your chill portions were, so that may vary up where your flowering is going to be. And then getting into whether you had frost or not, there's a lot of information coming out of North and East Victoria where there's some major black frosts, and if not up into Young as well. So we're just sort of hearing some of those reports over the last week on how bad it was. I think I was talking to one grower up in Young, they had a -5. So we'll just hear how bad some of that damage may be in the coming weeks to come, obviously affecting total amount of fruit onto the market. Another thing Jess mentioned earlier on, which was a good reminder, that your herbicide spray seed, that is looking like it's going to go off the market, especially for tree crops, and that it will still be available for broadacre due to resistance management of some of the ryegrasses and things. So just be prepared and write a program for yourself, whether you are going to use other herbicides. Basta, some people do like it, some people don't like it. It has had cherries go on and off the label over the last few years. So you'll have to use some alternatives if you want to try and control grasses and suckers as they come up. Another new fungicide is due on the market from Syngenta, Miravis Prime. I think that's how they're going to be pronouncing it. It is a group 7 and 12. So we do have to manage our resistance management, especially when we've got things like Luna and Merivon, which also contain that group 7, and how many we're going to be putting on over flowering, noting that sometimes we need some of this grouping coming into harvest as well. So just need to make sure for season long we're not hitting more than 2 or 3 sprays of these groupings in controlling brown rot and grey mould. And this Miravis Prime has the active ingredient. Some of the growers out there with apples as well might know it as Scholar, which is a post-harvest fungicide as well. So just be aware of your resistance management groups through harvest and what you might be using post-harvest as well. Apart from that, the other insects around at the moment probably haven't shown up. Just we're still a little bit cold at the moment. we've only had a few days where the sunset temperature is conducive to insect growth, so we might be starting to see some fruit flies and other things like that starting to come out, maybe in some citrus crops and other crops around the district. So get your traps out, keep looking, keep monitoring, and then you can work out where you need to go from there.
Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate that. If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. Adam will be staying on for the remaining of the webinar, so we can grab him as well if you start pondering. But appreciate you coming on and talking, really openly about what you're seeing. Appreciate the communication. So thank you, Adam. I've also just popped in the chat too while Adam was talking about the pest and disease that the New South Wales Department's Orchard Plant Protection Guide, which some of you might have seen at the conference if you're outside New South Wales, is now out. I hope everyone appreciates the cover picture of the guide. It looks pretty cool. But the electronic version is now available, and if you need a hard copy and you're outside of New South Wales, please get in touch. But they'll be going out to the local distributors as well for those growers. Okay, thank you, Adam. Moving on, I'd like to introduce Chris, our new export manager for Cherry Growers Australia, who works on the Trade project, another Port Innovation Levy funded project. And Chris is going to give us a bit of an update on where he's at and an introduction to who he is. So thank you, Chris.
Make sure I'm unmuted.
Yep, you sound good.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Jess, and it's lovely to meet you all. As Jess mentions, I've recently joined CGA as the Trade Development Coordinator, and so in my role, I look after the Port Innovation funded Cherry Trade Development Project. I mean, a little bit about me. So my background is actually working with Australian and British companies, helping them expand and grow in the Chinese market. So quite relevant for the cherry industry, given it's our second biggest export market. And then today, I'm just going to provide a bit of a short update on the Trade Development Project and what we've been working on recently. So the big one was attending Asia Fruit Logistica from the 4th to the 6th of September in Hong Kong. So it was my first time at AFL, and it was a very impressive expo, just in terms of kind of the size, the scale, and everyone who attended. There was representation from all around the world. So CGA, we had a stand there, and that was manned by myself, and that was within the kind of broader Port Innovation Australia pavilion. And it was really good to see a strong Australian cherry presence. So several growers were located throughout the building expo. And the even better news was lots and lots of interest in Australian cherries. So the first day was particularly hectic with just kind of a very, very steady stream of interest. That volume slowly died off over the 3 days, but I think the quality actually probably improved. So people who had kind of specifically come to the expo to talk to Australian cherry growers. So one of the key things that we did was, and to kind of help convert these conversations and opportunities into growers is directed them to the export inquiry form. And I'll have a link to that later on my presentation, but yeah, I'll speak about that in a little bit. So just a kind of very brief reminder of the opportunities for cherry exporters and kind of the three kind of categories of markets that we think about. So the first one is just unregulated markets, and these are the easiest markets for cherry exporters to export to. Often they may only require like an import and export permit and compliance with the relevant maximum residue levels, which may be different to the Australian market, but they are comparatively straightforward. And so Hong Kong would be a classic example of an unregulated market. We then move on to the moderately regulated markets, and so these are slightly more difficult. They may have kind of a higher level of requirements. They may come with additional paperworks, and they may require kind of endpoint treatment. So that could be methyl bromide or irradiation. And then finally, we have the highly regulated markets. And so these are the ones that are the protocol markets. And so essentially what that means is that the Australian government has sat down with the foreign government and have negotiated like a treaty that essentially outlines all the rules that one has to follow in order to get into these markets. And they are definitely the hardest, but sometimes the prices will support the effort required to comply with those markets. For those highly regulated protocol markets, you have to go through an accreditation process which has closed. So if you haven't done the paperwork, unfortunately, that's not an opportunity for you for this season, but the other two are possible. Just on that accreditation protocol, I did have a catch up with the department just before, kind of in preparation for this webinar. So they have sent all the kind of grower and pack house lists to the protocol markets for the countries to kind of consider and work through the paperwork. Still waiting on a formal response, but everything is on track for the upcoming season. So at this point, no news is very good news. As I mentioned, we do continually get inquiries into CGA, the export the line from people from all around the world looking to buy Australian cherries. And so one of the kind of key ways that we do that, we kind of distribute this information, is we encourage those importers to fill out a form. It includes information about, have they previously purchased cherries? Do they understand kind of the process, the cold chain requirements in that process? Where are they located and what are they looking for? That information is then distributed to the export opportunities mailing list. So if you would like to receive those updates, please either scan that QR code or I'll put it into the chat after my talk. But that, as I said, you fill out that form and then those opportunities are emailed out as they come in. So that is the end of my kind of formal presentation. I would just say that, so we do, as part of the Trade project, have an export help desk. So if at any point kind of throughout the season you have questions, concerns, things that you need to get in contact about, please do reach out, either my mobile number or at export@cherrygrowers.org.au. And either, if I don't know the question, I'll find someone so if I don't know the answer to your question, I'll find someone who can definitely help. But thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. I know that, yeah, you're extremely helpful and we're more than happy to get in touch with growers about any of these processes that we have to go through. Export can sometimes feel like, yeah, a lot to get your head wrapped around, but there's lots of people willing to help you out and throughout at any point during the season as well. So if you don't know the answer, please ask rather than, yeah, bumbling along. I will say as well, while Chris was talking about the auditing process and meeting with DAF, I caught up with Luke Davis Bishop last week and we recorded an episode on DAF's auditing process. We tried to make the episode as fun as possible for everyone to listen, but it's a bit of a step-by-step guide for those new to exporting, and it's all about what happens with audits and when you can expect them and who to talk to about that too. So yeah, so there's DAF and Chris as well to reach out to. We will hope to have Chris at least in New South Wales in the next couple of weeks to get round and meet a few of you growers, which would be fantastic too. I'm hoping to get him in some of the orchards as well. So we'll start to see Chris and get to know him a bit more as well. So thank you, Chris, for jumping on this afternoon. Okay, so now I'm really excited for I'm excited for our presenters, but I'm excited for this presenter because Sara has presented me last week with this climate forecasting tool that I think will be extremely beneficial for not only cherry growers, but horticulture and agriculture in general. So Sara's got a forecasting tool that allows us to look not only into the future with climate scenarios, but cast out almost to 2050 as well. So I'll let her explain how it all works. And yeah, we'll run through how we can apply it to our cherry orchards too. So thank you, Sara.
Thanks, Jess. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm, as Jess mentioned, I'm with FarmLink Research, which is based out in Temora, but my role is actually sitting in the customer engagement team of the Bureau of Meteorology. So the Climate Services for Agriculture project is a future drought fund funded project that's now in its 4th year. And the flagship tool of this project is a website called My Climate View. And My Climate View was developed to allow growers and producers to search by their commodity and their location for both historical climate data and to be able to see the trends in historical data, but also, as Jess mentioned, give them that window into future climate forecasts. So I might just jump straight in and share my screen, and just feel free to ask questions as you go along. So can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, looks great. Thanks,
Yep.
Sarah.
Okay, so this is the homepage of My Climate View. So it's myclimateview.com.au is the web address. It's I should mention it's been developed by CSIRO and the Bureau using Bureau data. So it's a free tool. You don't need to register. It's just freely available as a public good. So so this is the homepage, and you'll see up here, before I jump in, there's a couple of different menu items up here. One is the data sources. So if you're interested in learning where the data comes from, that's sort of informing the things that you see on here, you can have a look at that. If you're interested in API access, there's you can get in touch with us and we can provide you with that. And then there's also a bit about the tool, but also a comprehensive list of FAQs, which sort of might answer some of the questions you have about where the data comes from, how we came up with the definitions, how the averages are calculated, et cetera, et cetera. So when you come to the homepage, you'll see that you've got a box in here for your location. So I'm going to put in first Orange at Jess's suggestion, and then you've got a drop-down list of commodities. So depending on where you are in Australia, that list of commodities will be different and reflect what is grown and produced in that region. So if you're looking in Bowen in Queensland, you're going to get quite a different list of commodities to what you're going to get in Orange in New South Wales, similarly in Geraldton and so on. So you can see that cherries are on here, but we might start with none to begin with, because that'll just give you some general climate information, general overview. And it takes you to this dashboard, which is a future climate overview for Orange. And so as you go down, you'll see that there are indices for both monthly and annual rainfall averages, and then also broken down by season. So what you'll see that there's a column here that describes what's happening with the trends. So you can see here that there's been a decline in autumn rainfall of about 24 millimetres in the past 30 years compared to the 30 years prior to that. But if it says inconclusive, the future forecasts are taken from 8 global climate models. So what inconclusive means is that there's not great agreement between the 8 models. So it may be showing not much in the way of changes, but that doesn't mean that some models didn't show a change, but they're not agreeing there. So I'll go into monthly rainfall to begin with, and this shows you the purple is the historical data and the green is the projections. So you can have a look at past only if you want to. You just want to look at what's happened. And what this gives you is so if we just go back for a moment, you can see that annual rainfall, there hasn't been much of a change in the overall average, but the distribution of that rainfall throughout the year has changed quite considerably. So you're seeing that you're getting more rainfall in the summer and a little bit less in the autumn. So what that means to you as growers is, I'm not a cherry expert by any means, my background's sort of more in grains, but like you will have a better idea of what that means for you. So even within these seasons, you might be interested in then, well, is it all falling in February, or is it coming in equal amounts throughout the season? So that's what the monthly information will give you. So if we go to past only, you can see that you've seen this increase in summer rainfall, but that is, sorry, where's that? that right? Monthly rainfall. Sorry, a decrease in autumn rainfall, I mean. So you can see that you've actually had a slight increase in March averages, but a decrease in April and May. So the overall picture for autumn is that there's been a decrease. If you want to look out into the future, into what the projections are, you can click on that past and future. So if you have a look at, if we have a look at, say, autumn rainfall, for example, it presents it slightly differently. So the mauve box represents the past 30 years and the purple box is the 30 years prior to that. So it allows you to compare it in sort of these 30-year epochs, one against the other. The dots represent the individual year. So if you roll your mouse over there, you can see what the autumn rainfall was in that particular year. These are the 90th and the 10th and 90th percentiles, and this line in the middle represents the average. So what this can also show you, not only in terms of what's happening with your average, but it can also show you changes in variability. So even though you might have a decline in rainfall, sometimes you'll see that the variability is increasing. So you're still going to get very wet autumns and very dry autumns. And so it's not really telling you what's going to happen next year, but just showing you a bit of a general trend. With any of the data on this site, you can download both the CSV in a CSV file with the data in an Excel sort of form, or you can download the chart as well. And then, you know, once I'll show you through some of the other stuff, but you can also download an entire report for your area. So if we're still looking at general, so this is not cherry specific, this is just general climate information, we can have a look at things like temperature also. So whereas the future forecast for rainfall, forecasting rainfall into decades into the future is a little bit more complex than forecasting temperature. So that's why you'll see sort of clearer trends in terms of what's happening with temperature into the future. So this is past and future. If we look at past only, you can see that, so this is the average over a year, but you can also have a look at like hot days, for example, and how these are increasing. So 5 days compared to 1. When you want to know what the definition of a hot day is, you can just go into this definition here, and it says they're defined as days with a maximum temperature greater than or equal to 35 degrees over the course of a year. If that's not applicable for your enterprise, if you think it should be higher or lower, you can actually modify that. So you can say, well, you know, to me, a hot day might be 37 degrees and save and update that, and it will adjust that graph and that data according to the new thresholds that you put in there. And what the site will do, will remember the settings that you've put in. So if you want to change those thresholds, you'll see that little blue dot there that says it's modified, and it will remember those settings for you next time you come back to the site. You won't need to do that each time you come in. And if you want to take it back to what the default is, you just go reset to default, save and update. So, here's your future climate overview. So if you wanted to download that as a PDF, you can do that, and it will give you a sort of 10, 12, 16-page report with all of the graphs and all of the information that's in here. But as cherry growers, you know, you would then be interested in cherry-specific information. So you can go back to the overview and select cherries. And the climate indices that are shown on here are things that have been given to us by industry. So when we were developing this website, we went out and spoke to all the various commodity groups and said, what are the key challenges in your growing season or in your production season, the key climate stresses that happen throughout the year? And these are the things that the cherry industry came back and told us. So, yeah, I mean, these will be familiar to you, no doubt. So if we have a look at fruit cracking days at maturity, this has been modified from last time we looked at it to, and all these indices are just using Bureau climate data, but curated in such a way that it'll give you this information. So you can change the dates in here if you want to, in terms of when the maturity occurs. You can change the rainfall up and down to whatever is appropriate for you. So you could probably tell me better than what I could what this means, if this is anything, you know, of concern to you. The variability has actually decreased a little bit in the last 30 years compared to the 30 years prior to that. We've also got chill accumulation. We've had increasing variability in this, but a little bit of a decline in chill portions. And this is sort of forecast to, you know, continue into that decrease in chill portions is predicted to increase into the future, looking at those forecasts. You can, we have got forecasts out into the future under 2 different emission scenarios, carbon emission scenarios. So you can have a look at a high carbon emission scenario or a medium carbon emission scenario. And that the high is sort of a business as usual. So if there was no greenhouse gas mitigation taking place whatsoever, that would be the, you know, the projections. Medium is if there's quite a lot of greenhouse gas mitigation taking place and we're putting the brakes on. The climate scientists think that we're probably tracking somewhere, you know, in between those 2 scenarios. We can have a look at frost as well. And this sort of frost pattern is something that we're seeing right across a lot of growing regions for different crops like grains, almonds and so on. And what we've seen in the last 30 years compared to the 30 years prior to that is an increase in frosts. Even though the temperature is getting warmer, the frosts have increased, and they believe that that's because as the temperatures have warmed, we've had more clear nights, which allow those overnight minimums to drop. But the projections are showing that into the future, as those overnight minimums continue to increase, gradually those frost conditions, the conditions that allow frost to form will sort of fall away, and you'll get this sort of hockey stick shape in terms of like a short-term increase, but a longer-term decrease in frosts. And again, you can modify, you know, this is defined as less than or equal to 0 degrees between those dates. You obviously change that if that's not appropriate. We've also got hot days post-harvest. So this is defined as temperatures greater than or equal to 35 degrees between 15th of November and 30th of April. There's been an increase of 4 days in the last 30 years, and that is also projected to increase, but not at a sort of rapid rate. And finally, for cherries, we have warm conditions during pollination. So you can see here that the variability has decreased a lot. So in the last 30 years, we just have not had these sort of fewer days, years where you have these fewer days. So there was 2016 where you had this outlier here, but generally speaking, those warm conditions during pollination are sort of becoming more consistent into the future. So taking a look at another location, we might go to, say, Cobram. And with the location function on the homepage, you can type in a town, you can type in a street address, you can put GPS coordinates, or you can just drag this pin to where your property is. So any of those will work. So again, all the same indices. Let me know if you would like me to go into these in any more detail. I know I only had 15 minutes, and I'm at 15 minutes now. So, Jess, was there anything else that you wanted me to cover in terms of the tool?
Just where growers can find it, Sarah, and how they might be able to utilise it.
Yeah, so the address is myclimateview.com.au. There's also on the front page a give feedback button that I'd like to draw your attention to, because that does come straight through to our team. So if you have any comments or suggestions, even though the tool is essentially finished, we do have a feature proposal process. So, and it's funded out for another 4 years. So when we get, you know, good insights from industry saying, look, this would be really helpful if we could see this, then it will go through a feature proposal process, and then it may end up being incorporated into the tool. So yeah, so that's it. I'll stop sharing and
Thanks very much, Sara.
questions?
Yes, we have plenty of time for questions. So does anyone have any questions for Sara or Adam, Chris? Alison's jumped off, but yeah, keen to hear everyone's thoughts.
I've got one for Sara.
Yep.
When is the 24-year update going to go to those figures there?
So I'll just share my screen again. So in terms of, you mean like
On a couple of those graphs, there was
23,
2023.
yeah. So once the end of the year clicks over and we get into 2025, that bit will turn into 65 to 24. And so it's just a rolling, update.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has anyone else got any other questions?
One thing, sorry, Jess, can I just mention,
Yeah.
the purpose of the tool, I guess, was originally designed to help growers build resilience into their enterprises. So if they could see, where things were heading and where they were likely to head into the future, that would hopefully allow them to then, put in place sort of medium to longer term measures to, mitigate against, the worst of those things. But there are other ways that we've had feedback about people using it. So we had citrus growers in Western Australia who were using this data to support funding applications for netting on their orchards. So they had netted off a quarter of their orchard and seen improvements in water use efficiency, sunburn on the fruit, wind damage, things like that. And so they were then putting the case to say, well, we now want to net the remaining 3/4 of our orchard. We will use the graphs and the data that we see in here to say, well, here's what the likely conditions are. This is what's been happening, and this in terms of water availability and so on. This is what's likely to occur into the future. We need the funding too. So there's other ways you can think about using it as well. And I'd encourage you also to explore some of the other commodities on there, because there might be things on there that are of interest. I don't know whether there's any mixed farmers on here, but there's indices for sheep that are around heat at joining, or, heat conditions at joining, cold conditions at lambing, things like that. So, yeah, so encourage you to explore it and let us know what you think.
I love the diversity of this tool and being able to adjust those indices as well. So like you said, what defines as a hot day in Orange could be different to down in Shepparton. So how do we define those hot days? You can adjust them as well, which is really great. I know, Sara, as well, you guys said that you had a YouTube tutorial link.
Yes.
Yeah, so if Bianca or you had that, it'd be great to send that out after, or if we can pop it in the chat, that'd be fantastic.
Sure.
Fiona's got a question for you, Sara, in the chat as well, and she's just asking, do you see the banks looking at this data for financing into the future?
They certainly are a group that banks and insurance industry is a group that we've spoken to over the course of the project. I know that one of the groups that's taken the tool on is the Rural Financial Counselling Service. So they work with their clients when they're helping them present or prepare a farm business plan to use this data. And similarly with the farm business resilience planning through Queensland fruit and veg growers, they've been using that too. So Yeah, so definitely potential for it to be used that way.
Look, Jess, I just got something to say, Jess. Sky.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Just to Adam, I wouldn't put spray seed on the chopping block yet. It's not over. There's no decision been made. We've been meeting with it every couple of weeks, so trying to give them the right information, non-biased, and yeah, I don't think. If you've got vegetables and you've got one of those drone things that hits the grass on a single strike, I don't know why they're so against them, but they are. But we come in the orchard, and I think it might be all right. But that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, so the label will be greatly reduced to which commodities, and it is written in the APVMA there that the horticultural crops will be taken away. So it has been in review for 10 plus years. So yeah, we just need to think outside the box on how we're going to control our suckers and under tree grasses.
Yeah, but they can't easily take away something that when you've got young trees up to 3-4 years old, you can't use anything else. Or you can probably use buster the second year. But yeah, anyway, look, and mine not be as bad as what we think of. Let's hope.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Adam. Any other questions for tonight? I've just seen that Bianca's popped in the My Climate View training video. So if you guys wanted to have a play around a bit later and just have a look at the features, I will say as well, I've downloaded a few of the reports as well, and they're quite easy to use and good to have on hand too, particularly when thinking about research proposals or like Sara said, netting grants, things like that. And yeah, Sarah's just said the training video goes for around 7 minutes, but I know Sara and Bianca and their team are happy to have a chat to anyone as well who would like to use that. So if no one has any more final questions, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Chris, Sara, Adam, and Alison for jumping on this evening and giving us all an update. Hopefully it was useful for everyone. We want to keep these nice and short and sweet. And hopefully you can share the recording around if you found it valuable. I will just highlight again that we've got a few different webinars, workshops, and different groups that you can join coming up very shortly. So make sure that you're across all our social pages and make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter, which will come out tomorrow night. You can just jump onto the Cherry Growers Australia website there and you should be able to sign up to the newsletter. Oh, and Geeta's got it in the chat now. If anyone has any comments or anything that they would like to see on future webinars, please just drop me an email or get in touch with me. I really want to make these as accessible for everyone as possible. So if you've got something you want to hear from or someone you want to get in touch with, please let me know. And I just want to say big thanks to Geeta. Again, she's always in the background helping out with these webinars. So she keeps me in line. So appreciate it. But if that's all, and Sarah's just got one last couple of things in the chat there, so make sure, you keep an eye on the links coming through. I've put some information in there and the pledge documents too. So with that, I just want to wish everyone good luck for the next couple of weeks. Keep in touch, and we'll see you all hopefully at the mid-season update. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Jess. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.